I was recently requested by one of my viewers to have a look at this. This is one of the past exam papers for applicants for Japanese government scholarships. This is the English exam paper for special training college students. I haven't had a look at the rest of the file, so I don't know what to expect. Let's begin. Let me just zoom in. The friend did not blank me of the conference. So this looks like a typical vocab question. What you need to notice first is the presence of this preposition of. The verb to inform is the only one out of these options that expects this preposition. So the friend did not inform me of the conference. Number 2, I blank go to the museum today. I have had enough of the movie theater. I prefer, would rather. After the brackets, in this question, you need to notice that there is no to, so you cannot have prefer, because the verb prefer expects there to be to. I prefer to go, or I would prefer to go. So the answer should be, I would rather go to the museum. Number 3, blank I may go. I can keep in touch with you. Whatever, however, whenever, wherever. The only choice that makes sense is wherever, because the first clause has the verb go, which means it has to do with places. So wherever I may go, or no matter where I go. Number 4, he does not know blank the students in his school. He knows only some of them. None, both, all, any. The answer is obviously number 3. He doesn't know all the students, but he knows some of them. You cannot say none, because that would result in double negation. Both wouldn't make sense, because schools normally have more than 2 students. And if you said he doesn't know any students, then that would contradict the second clause. And besides, you can't have the article the, as in any the students. Number 5, there's little hope, blank, that I will meet him by next month. Okay, so this is more advanced grammar, but I would say if any. By inserting this phrase, if any, you are saying that if we can even say that there is any hope at all. So I guess my advice would be to see if each of these phrases could be inserted here. For example, can you say, if there is only hope, or if there is any hope, if there is ever hope, if there is not hope. Number 6, to teach is one thing, and to learn is blank. Another, other, the one. I would go with number 1. So basically, A is one thing, and B is another, which means that A and B are different things. Let us continue. Number 7, go back to your blank houses. Respectful, respective, respectable, respecting. So one of these options has a completely different meaning from the rest, and the odd one is number 2, respective. This word has nothing to do with respecting people. It's hard to define this word, so I recommend that you should look it up in your dictionary. But this means something like each. So if I were to rephrase this sentence, I would say, person A, go back to your own house, and person B, go back to your own house. Number 8, there were so many customers in the room that I could blank sit down there. No hardly, hard, not hard to, hardly. So what you need to know is that hard and hardly have completely different meanings. Hard means difficult or with a lot of effort, whereas hardly is a negative expression, and its meaning is similar to the word barely. So because hardly is a negative expression, you can't have another negative expression before it. So the only one that makes sense is number 4, I could hardly sit down there. Number 9, A says, I thought you were going to attend the evening party. B, I had every blank of going, but I had stomachache and went to the hospital. Satisfaction, suggestion, intention, emotion. You basically have to know what these words mean, and I would say number 3, intention. I had every intention of going, meaning I intended to go, or I planned to go. Number 10, it would be nice if we blank a bit more room. Have, would have, had, have had. So this must be a question on the conditional/subjunctive. Basically, the conditional is used when you're talking about a situation that is not real or hypothetical situation. This person is saying that even though I know that we don't have much room, if we did have more room, it would be nice. So in the blank, I would put number 3, had, as in if we had a bit more room. Basically, when you are talking about hypothetical situation in the present, then you put the verb in the past tense. Whereas if you're talking about a hypothetical situation in the past, then you would use the past perfect, as in if we had had. Number 11, nobody phoned. Did blank. Did it. Did he or she? Did anybody? Did they? I can sort of understand why some people may find this question confusing, because nobody is usually treated as third person singular, but just like everyone or someone, these words tend to get replaced by they, so I would go with did they. Number 12, it's time you blank home, but I'd rather you stayed. Essentially, when you see this phrase, it's time, or it's high time, or it's about time, then you have to conjugate the verb into the past tense. It's time you went home. Number 13, Tim keeps tapping his fingers, blank gets on my nerves. So this is a question on relative pronouns. So you need to pay attention to the relative clause, which starts after the comma, and you have to focus on the verb, because sentences in English revolve around verbs. And you have to ask yourself, what is the thing that gets on my nerves? So you look back and you should realize that his action is the thing that gets on my nerves. So in the subject position here, you have to have something that can refer to this whole clause. And the only relative pronoun that can do that is number 1, which. Number 2 and number 3 are basically synonymous. And number 4, where, is used when the preceding noun denotes a place. Number 14, can you finish the job blank next week, on next week, by next week, until next week, till next week. You should be aware that until and till mean the same thing, so you can ignore these options, and I would go with by next week. The preposition by, when followed by a time expression, expresses a deadline. So this sentence is really saying, can you finish the job, and the deadline is next week. Number 15, there's a bank blank his house. Beside of, besides, beside to. So first off, beside of and beside to are not phrases, so you can ignore them. Besides with an S and beside without an S mean different things. Number 2, besides means something like in addition to or apart from, whereas number 3, beside, expresses a location, so I would say beside, a bank beside his house. And it looks like we are on section 2 now. Number 1, when I arrived at the theater, the play had have already begun, will have already begun, have already begun, had already begun. Okay, so you should be able to rule out 1 and 3. As for number 1, you cannot have the base form of a verb after had, because the verb have expects the following verb to be in the past participle form. And as for number 3, the verb have, again, is the problem. When you look at the subject, the play, this is a singular now, so the first verb in the verb phrase must agree with the subject in number. And number 2 looks grammatically correct, but it is not the correct answer because we are talking about an event in the past, so you can't really have will. So that leaves us with number 4, had already begun. Number 2, Mike lost his bag the day before yesterday. He blank it in the bus. Must have dropped. Must have been dropped. Must dorp. What is that? Must be dropping. Okay, first of all, what is dorp? You need to be careful about number 2 and number 4, and you should notice that when you have been followed by a verb in the past participle form, that means that the sentence is in the passive voice. But it's not really true that he is the person being dropped. How about number 4? When you have the verb be plus a verb in the present participle form, that indicates the progressive aspect. So we are left with number 1, must have dropped. Have plus a verb in the past participle form indicates an action in the past. Number 3, the cloth I ordered blank next Tuesday will deliver, is delivering, is being delivered, was delivered. So number 4 is impossible because the word to has to be followed by a verb in the plain form. And as I said in the previous section, I believe, you have to pay attention to the verb and think about the meaning. Is the cloth something that can do the delivering action? And the answer is obviously no. And for this reason, you cannot have 1 or 2. And instead, we have to have a passive construction. Number 4, Kate is only 14. She is blank, too old, young enough, not too young, not old enough. So the first sentence says only 14, meaning that she's very young. So number 1 is out, and number 2 is also out, and number 3, not too young, contradicts only 14. So we are left with number 4, not old enough, meaning that she has to be much older. Number 5, we are not allowed to eat food in this room, so blank any kind of snack. There is no point in bringing. There is no point to bring. It's no point in bringing. It's no point to bring. You kind of have to know this phrase, but the answer is there is no point in bringing, which means it's useless. Number 6. A. Did Nancy go to the national park last weekend? B. Blank I know. She went there with her friends. As long as soon as much as far as. And I would go with number 4, as far as I know, which means something along the lines of, to the extent of my knowledge. As long as is usually used when you are talking about a condition that has to hold true. As long as I live, I won't let you see my daughter. And as soon as is used when you're talking about time. For example, as soon as I came home, I went to bed. As much as is hard to explain, but an example would be, as much as I love to listen to your story, I've got to go home. Let's keep going. Number 7. Blank what to do. I remained standing there. Not known, not knowing, knowing nothing, to know. This part right here is what's called participial phrase. In a participial phrase, you have to omit the conjunction, and you can usually remove the subject if the subject of this phrase is the same as the subject of the main clause. And you have to put the verb in either the past participle form or the present participle form. And if you choose the past participle form, then that implies the passive voice. So in this sentence, you can't really say not known, because that would imply that I was not known. And you can't say knowing nothing what to do, because knowing can only have one object, nothing, and you can't put another object after it. So far, all these questions are really similar to the center exam questions. Number 8. All my colleagues criticized me, but I did what I thought was right. I was thought right. I thought I was right. I thought it was right. So this is a pretty complex structure, but I would say number 1 is the correct answer. In number 2, I was thought is a passive construction, which makes no sense in this context. And number 3, I thought I was right. This is a complete sentence, and when you have the relative pronoun what follows it has to be incomplete in either the subject position or the object position. So this is unacceptable. How about number 4? I thought it was right. Again, this is another complete clause. Nothing is missing. But when you look at number 1, I thought was right, you should be able to see that there is something missing here. So you have to ask yourself, I thought what was right? Number 9, I have no words to express my gratitude. I blank that problem by myself. I can't have dealt with, I can't dealt with, couldn't have dealt with, or couldn't dealt with. Immediately I can tell you that 2 and 4 are incorrect because dealt is either the past tense form or the past participle form of the verb deal, so it cannot be preceded by a modal verb. So I would go with number 3 because this person is talking about a hypothetical situation. Number 10, I didn't attend the swimming class and blank. Mary did neither. Either was Mary. Neither was Mary. Neither did Mary. So basically, you have to invert the word order. What comes before the subject in the second position has to correspond to the element that comes here. So I would say neither did Mary. Number 11, the highest tower in Tokyo is blank, Mount X. Nearly high as a third as, nearly a third as high as, a third as nearly high as nearly a third high as. Okay, number 2, as high as is one chunk, and before this chunk you have to put the multiplier, so nearly a third is the multiplier. Number 12, blank home when it began to rain. Hardly I have left, hardly had I left, hardly I had left, hardly have I left. So we have hardly yet again, and as I said before, hardly is a negative expression, and when a negative word comes at the very beginning of a sentence, we get inversion. So the word order in 1 and 3 is not inverted, so these are incorrect. It's either had or have. And you have to look at the verb here, and you need to notice that it's in the past tense. So you need to choose the past perfect. Number 13, blank his information. There was an accident in that company because of, owing to, as to, according to. So this is a very simple vocabulary question. You basically have to be familiar with all these expressions. The correct answer should be number 4. According to his information. There are 2 more questions from section 2. Number 14, they talked blank what they ought to do, each other about, with each other about, each other. Okay, so talk is an intransitive verb, and that means that before each noun phrase, there has to be a preposition. With noun phrase, about noun phrase. So number 3. Number 15, this is a library. Blank, the pets are not allowed. Need I say more? It goes without saying, regardless of saying, one cannot but saying. Okay, number 2, it goes without saying. This is another question where you basically have to know all these phrases, and the phrase it goes without saying means that it's not really necessary to say something because everyone knows it already. We have 10 more pages. I need to try to speed up a little bit. Choose the best word. Why don't you a steady job and a normal haircut? Get a job, get a haircut. You're going to have to get some... What can you get? Some qualifications. Find a good job and settle down. I don't need those kinds of things. I want to be with people who are creative and artistic and who aren't afraid to be different. I get bored when I'm with people who do the same thing every day or just want to be like everybody else. I think it's important for each of us to be ourselves and not just follow the crowd. So for this type of questions, you basically have to take into consideration what comes before and after the blank. For example, here, the subject and an object, so that means that you have to have a verb. What can you do to a job? And what can you do to a haircut? You can get a job, you can get a haircut. Let's go to the next question. Everyone is afraid of snakes, right? An old theory says that fear of things like snakes and fire is built into our brain. It's like programmed. Because animals that are afraid of dangerous things live longer and have more offspring or descendants. But some scientists have done research that shows that we might actually learn to be afraid of things. Scientists did an interesting experiment with monkeys to see if this is true. They two groups of monkeys, they observed. One group was born in the jungle, but the other was born in a lab at the university. These results show the researchers' conclusion was that fear is partly built into monkeys' brains, but it is activated by watching other monkeys. In one survey that's done, well, I had heard about this stuff, so I had prior knowledge. Having random knowledge will help you out at some point in your life. Anyway, let's go to the next section. Read the passage, answer questions. Okay, so for this type of questions, I recommend that you should look at the questions first. Where are the questions? Closest in meaning to astronomers. I already know what this means. Let's see. Scientists. Astronomers are scientists who study the universe or the outer space. Astro means star. The missing word in A is when, if, although, then. Okay. A, it provides the air we breathe and protection from the sun. The atmosphere interferes with astronomers' ability to see into space. Okay. So, number 4 is out because the sentence contained two clauses. Although, because the two clauses seemed to be somewhat at conflict with each other. Although it provides the air we breathe and protection from the sun, the atmosphere interferes with astronomers' ability to see into space. Okay, I think it makes sense. Question 3. True about the universe, except... Okay, so I may be able to guess the answer without having to read the passage. The universe is constantly expanding. This is true. The Earth's atmosphere restricts visibility into space. This is also true. Dark energy is something modern scientists do not understand. This is probably true. Dark energy is still mysterious. Russia launched the first satellites before this person proposed the idea. Let's check Russia satellite Spitzer. Russia, where is Russia? Spitzer. 11 years before Russia launched the world's first man-made satellite. So this is the incorrect one because Spitzer had proposed the idea before Russia launched the first satellite, which is not supported by the passage, okay? Spitzer was a great thinker and scientist. Sounds plausible. Modern science and our current knowledge of the universe owe a lot to Spitzer's ideas. Probable. Spitzer's idea of a space telescope was based on his knowledge of modern space technology. Possible. Dark energy might be the opposite of gravity. Okay, let's see. Modern space technology, dark energy, gravity. There's gravity. So it says Spitzer proposed the idea long before technology such as these existed. So he didn't have any knowledge of modern space technology, I guess. Question 5. The most important discovery. Atmosphere interferes. I don't think this is it. Universe is expanding. Dying stars. Black holes. Understanding of the universe. This is really vague, so it's unlikely. Where is Hubble? So let's see where Hubble is first mentioned. Hubble. Okay. Hubble. Dying stars. Black holes. So I would say number 3. This was in the first paragraph. In the paragraph where this was mentioned, the Hubble was not mentioned at all. This is too vague. Section 5. Again, let's see the questions first. What is true about the color red? Okay. Powerful. Helps athletes no matter what. What does that mean? Red helps athletes win sometimes. Red shows dominance in humans. Okay. Possible. So red athletes win in dominance. Athletes wearing red were more likely to win. Okay. Red seems to be the color across species that signals male dominance. Red consistently associated with a higher probability of winning. So I guess number 3 helps athletes win sometimes. Question 2. The following question could be put into the article. Where would it best fit? Should red not be allowed in sports uniforms? Okay, 1, 3, 4, 5. So we need to identify the paragraph that answers this question. I would say number 5. Red advantage, new regulations governing sports uniform. Unintended advantage. So it's definitely 5. The same meaning as associated with, similar, proximate, connected, correlated. My first instinct is number 3. Let's see. Wearing red is consistently connected to, or consistently correlated to. Since we are talking about a probability, maybe we should go with number 4. There is a correlation. The missing word in 2. Result, effects, outcome, change. Where there was a small point difference, the blank of color was sufficient to tip the balance. Effect. Number 5. Which of the following is not supported by the passage? Red improves some birds' mating chances. Give athletes a big advantage. Seem to show male power. Some effect on the results of matches. Let's find birds. Birds. Increase the bird's success in finding a mate. So 1 is supported. So I would say number 2. I guess that means that the advantage that you get from wearing red is not that big. Section 6. Read the sentences. Write T or F. I'm not going to follow this instruction and I'll skip straight to the questions. Part of a shopkeeper's job to spot fake banknotes. It sounds true. Shop owner, shopkeeper. So I guess it's not true. Then F. I guess you can't be expected to spot fake banknotes. Question 2. The best counterfeit notes are made on a quality photostat machine. Okay. Photostat machine will not pass careful scrutiny. So F. Question 3. Some counterfeit notes can fool almost anyone. Okay. Likely to fool even the most careful bartender or shop owner. Does that mean the same thing as can fool almost anyone? The rest of the passage doesn't seem to be relevant, so I need to make a decision based on this bit. My question is, how about cops or experts? Are they included in anyone? I would say F, but I have a feeling that whoever made this exam thought otherwise. Number 4, machines can always show if a banknote is false. I don't think that's true, so I would say false. Ultraviolet light machines show the watermark. Ultraviolet machines have a sheen which is obvious under a small ultraviolet light machine. So I would say F. Ultraviolet light machines show if photocopy paper is used. So notes produced on photocopy machines. It doesn't mention photocopy paper anywhere, but I guess when you're using a photocopy machine, you are assumed to be using photocopy paper. The article says a mix of different kinds of lights can find even the best fake banknotes. A combination of lighting techniques. It says they claim will detect. Can we say that the article is saying that? It's a tough one, but I would say F. Number 8. The company that makes counterfeit will repay any money shopkeepers lose to counterfeiters. I think that was mentioned. Yeah. Guaranteed to reimburse. Yeah, so true. Number 9. People who make fake money are becoming more and more skillful. I think that was mentioned as well. They will eventually outsmart the new machine and ever-growing expertise. So this is T. Always work in gangs because it is safer. Is it true? Do they always work in gangs? They operate in small gangs. Okay, that's the only mention of gangs. So I suppose F